Yeah, it's 7 p.m. ladies and gentlemen. I want to call the subject of the March 13th. March 13th, 2023, Road and council meeting to order. All members of the council are present with the exception of Chris. He will not be zooming in and will not be present. Approval of the agenda. Christian, yes.
Change the microphone. Yes, that can be 4C7 to 4C1 or I. Move it up to the top of the nice please.
Any other additions or deletions or whatever on the agenda?
I would approve the agenda.
Second on Christian, discussion on the motion. There is no one favor of the motion. That's all stand. I forgot. I'm sorry. Standing. Class, please.
We want to flag the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First is White Bishop.
Eat the mic, right? Okay, my public comments tonight is on the tree committee discussion and action, and I'll get right to it. I think that this is a huge mistake. I think it's a blunder from a business, a practical, and especially a political standpoint. The tree committee duties, among other things, are care, preservation, pruning, or removal. They're appointed by the town council, which I think is a great thing, upon recommendations from the planning commission, acceptance of the committee plans by the planning commission and the elected official. This is a good plan. It's a decent ordinance. It follows our vision with checks and balances. This has checks and balances from 2 advisory bodies, and I think it's a very, very good idea, and to keep it the way it is. 2 advisory bodies, a committee and a commission, with the ultimate responsibility for decisions with the elected officials, where it should be, a check and balance that serves the residents well. Changing that law, changing the people's law for this committee is a slippery slope. Removing trees in our town are treasures for reasons like excessive maturity with no notice to our citizens, no written notice. And what we're doing there is we're violating our own law, basically. Based on recent events, trees are being removed and the residents are not being informed. 1104.07. It's not being followed, including written notifications that will help with the current shock and awe that our citizens experience. And when they come home and find trucks, trailers, chainsaws, workmen, equipment blocking access to their property, lunch waste, and the worst of it, there's been reports of cussing and scolding of our own citizens on their private property by the tree committee leadership in front of children and parents that are fearful to come forward and talk to all of you. That's not good. So please, don't create problems for yourselves. Please take this up in executive session tonight. When there's no emergency, or when there is an emergency, the mayor knows this. If there's a tree in the street, if there's a tree about to fall, you call the mayor. He orders the thing cut down, cleaned up, not a problem. So the mayor gives the order. I think that's the way it should stay. I would leave this alone. It's not broken, don't fix it. And I appreciate you giving me time to speak to all of you, our elected officials. And thank you.
David
Hi, everybody. I'm here because I want to talk about the opening of the street. As you know, I said I wouldn't be quiet about it, and I'm going to keep making noise about it. The 63 days ago, January 9th, they sat before you during that public hearing about the street use agreement, made noise about the fact that we don't have access to the overlook. I don't know, another 20 days passed. Laurel approached me. She made some inquiries. I think she talked to Laurel. And still, it remains closed. I think there was offering of a day or two to go over there for the town. Let's see, 29 days ago, I sent you guys an email. 29 days ago, almost a month. Pretty long, pretty involved. It's like they have 4 reasons that they can close it, right? Security, life safety, maintenance, or excessive noise disturbance, right? Those are the 4 reasons, okay? You have been inquiring, I think Kinsara's contacted their attorney. We don't have an answer. That means they don't have a reason and therefore should be open tomorrow. Laurel's sitting here, she probably has keys. I'd like to see it open tomorrow because there's no reason that it shouldn't be open. No reason. You haven't been given one. Don't sit around and reverse we've given the power back to them saying, oh, hold on, I'm going to give you a reason. No, give me a reason when you want to close it, not the other way around. We reversed that as a town. We've given up our power in that relationship. Okay, we need to take it back. Thank you.
No. First of all, I want to celebrate now. You may not be aware of maybe you are. All of the financial issues that town has been involved. Particularly the last 14, 15 years. We have a very short notice, probably a week, maybe not a week, not much more than that, to get our CPS, which is roughly direct spending, which is the old earmark. Both senators, we submitted on forms, we submitted properly, we had a little short turnaround, considerable amount of work done by dedicating the notion of including non with our public accountants, with our attorneys, getting all the information. While that was going on, she's in the middle of getting the town audits, which are required by state, and this all fit at the same time. And then while that's going on, the department also has deadlines, all being hidden at the same time. And finally, she, has been working closely with a person and Storm and Laurel for the budget and finance today. So I just think, Debbie, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for the job that you continue to do, particularly with the short time frame in the past 2 years. I know it's going to be a lot stress on you. You always manage to rise to the occasion, and I want you to know that I really appreciate that. I want to comment about the 340. We had an incredible week. I couldn't begin to guess how much our water loss was for that incredible week that we had directly underneath the US Route 340, approximately 20 feet below the road surface. There was a 6-inch water main break that was causing a considerable amount of water loss to the town. $33,000 later, which was the bill. It was an incredible journey to get that completed. We had really specialized construction crew from, I forget what county it was now. They were there with probably 8 or 10, all kinds of pieces of equipment, so you can imagine. We also had the department of highways inspector there because we were underneath the US state highway. It was a very, very complicated, very difficult time. For the person, was not with Steve. We were on top of it, we still out there. They were working on that. They were trying to that cruise around. And Steve was, I don't know if he had a tent or not, Steve, but he was there, and also when Sean and Ron, they were able assistance with Steve trying to maintain the water levels for all the residents of Hartsburg and Oliver and Washington County, because we were losing a significant rate. And you can imagine 20 feet below the surface where the creek was. Steve, thank you for all your input on that. As we have come up Community Street, we had another one. The only saving grace on this one is that it's not located 20 feet below the road. It is located halfway down Union, between Washington and Route 340. As you're going down, it's on the left-hand side, and we think that we may have it isolated, but that one also is going to be a tricky one. We may have to bring in a centralized group of workers to handle that. And I think Steve may want to talk about that later on. As you know, I wrote a letter to the Federal Railroad Administration expressing my deep concerns about the safety of the rail traffic coming through from the state of Maryland as it goes by the train station and makes that dramatic curve. And what prompted the letter, obviously, was Newhouse. East Palestine. The President East Palestine prompted me to write a letter to the Federal Railroad Administration, laying out my deep concerns. I copied both senators. I had probably 4 days after I sent the letter, got a phone call from the agent for safety for the Federal Railroad Administration, which didn't please me that much, but I basically told them that on the phone that I expect something to occur regarding their inspection, and that if they do inspect it and they say everything's fine, I told the region 4 person that I wanted to invite that their assessment is that curve is a state curve. So I'll see if they put that in writing. I went to a mayor's meeting a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I guess, with the other 4 mayors in Jefferson County, and I talked to them about this, and they are all sending independent letters also. And then I think I'm going to take it to another step, and I'm going to, and I've already talked to the other mayors, and I think we can move the ball 5 to counties going to both capital and management from 4 municipal mayors in the state of West Virginia, stating their concern for the rail lines that are going through Jefferson County. And my rationale on it is sometimes if you go to this area, we get some action, and then you have a little fire to send a letter, particularly signed by 5 municipal mayors to both Capito and Mansion. So I'll be offering that. And my only problem I have added, and they asked me to help me on this, is come up with some kind of letter that will have all of the municipalities in it. And I don't want to put a 9 letter on Hartsburg letter. We'll try to do this. So I'm not finished with this railroad thing. If you've never been down there at the railroad station, stand there at the railroad station and look at the track and look to your left where the curve is, that is a very significant curve. And we have, 110 cars going through there 20 times a day, 30 times a day. And we all see the tankers going through there, so goodness knows what's in those tankers, and that's very, very worrisome to me. And I'm not really glad this, on this for those senators and the, and then finally, I just mentioned, you may or may not be aware that the superintendent of the National Park Service, Tyrone Randyberg's last day was the last day of February. He had retired after 39 years of government service. And the actor in there now for the National Park Service is a law enforcement specialist, Ryan Levins, LEVINS, and he is the acting superintendent. And that's all I have for announcement. Approval of minutes, you have before you February 13 minutes, any corrections, additions, deletions? Chair, entertain a motion. Do I have a second on the motion? We have a second from Gary, and a second on the motion to approve the February 13 minutes, here none. All those in favor, raise your hand. Now, second. By the way, I have a note here. Acknowledge Kevin. I really want to point out, and this sitting here, and I should have done this before. Kevin does a real nice job with the minutes. Kevin, people 40 or 50 or 60 years from now, I want to see what happened in 2023. They'll know exactly what happened in 2023 because you do such a masterful job with the things. So thank you so much. Thank you.
I got 14 years. 14 years and go way back.
Treasury reports, we have a review and approval of financial report January 2023. Get one up, there.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. The financials you have this evening are for the end of January 2023. This is 58% of our fiscal 2023 year. In the general fund, our targeted expenses, our targeted income is $1,056,547. Therefore, the income that we have experienced as of the end of January of $744,253 represents 70% of the operating income for the year. Our operating expenses are at 60% of budgeted. Later in this meeting, you will be reviewing revision 3 for fiscal 23, which will reset our income and expenses based on data that we have thus far. You will also be reviewing the proposed budget for fiscal 24 as reviewed by Budget and Finance today. For Waterworks, the overall revenue received through January represents 64% of projected income. This includes the contribution of ARPA monies for the Elks Run replacement. Removing that from our operating income, our operating income and billing receipts are 59% of projected. For operating expenses, if we remove the Elks Run replacement contract work, which is a one-time experience, our operating expenses are running at 63%. The need for revision 4 of the Waterworks budget was accelerated by the main break at Route 340 and Union that occurred late in February. So later today, you will be reviewing for that for approval in this meeting. Fiscal 24 proposed water budget will be developed later this month for approval in April. Any questions?
I just want to say they're great. Maybe we did a good job on the budgeting side of it, but the businesses are doing a really good job.
Yeah, that's
All those in favor?
so the next item is your particular purchases over the threshold for approval. There were 4 checks, 3 invoices. Any questions on any of those? Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The 2 items from top company, was that to help with the audit?
No, it's the fiscal, it's the second half of the fiscal 20. Oh, I wrote 23. It's fiscal 22 financial statements. So they gave us the first half of that invoice about a month or so ago. And then this closes out the fiscal 22 statements right there, if you see 630. So
So these are regular expenses that they.
Uh-huh. yeah, every year. Yeah. And they come kind of separate from our monthly experience. It's a, Mhm. yeah, and we share it between water and general fund. Mhm.
I'm going to approve the invoices first.
Second line. First, discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. County reports, grants.
Good evening, council. For the month of February 2023, we had one accident, no call outs. We had 4 assists. 69 citations were issued and we had 127 incidents for the month. Everything was pretty well. I continue to meet with Mayor Vaughn and discuss issues and go over concerns. Also trying to set up another meeting with Corporal Hockman to do a walkthrough through the Shipley Elementary School. We completed the one through the middle school. Now I'm in an attempt to set up another walkthrough to do for the elementary school, so the officers are familiar with that area. Also, the mayor was just talking about train incidents. And I'd signed up for training that they're going to be having here in Harpers Ferry on April 5th. It came through Jefferson County Homeland Security for being prepared and training for derailments and talking about hazardous materials and stuff as well. And that's being put on by Steve Allen. And it's for law enforcement and fire and EMS for training for this. So I'm glad he mentioned that, and made me take notes to write that down to let him know I've signed up for that as well. Any questions or concerns that the council may have or want to address with me at this time? Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Budget and finance.
Ordinance.
I report. So let's go to the newly moved budget and finance.
Yeah, let me do a little introduction there. This item is special action in our fiscal year 2023, 24, 23. And this is for the Harpers Ferry Bolivar Historic Town Foundation funding. We're going to talk about this project and working with. We were approved for this money earlier in the year. This is a change, but they won't use.
Yeah, I'm coordinating with this investigation.
So, okay. Carolyn Byer, Secretary of the Harpers Ferry Bolivar Historic Town.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. As Christian said, my name is Carolyn Byer, and I represent the Harpers Ferry Bolivar Historic Town Foundation. I'm the secretary there and the grants coordinator, and we presented a proposal to the council. As Christian said, this money, I believe, was already pre-approved, but for a different purpose. And the purpose that we are now proposing is to replace 2 small canopies over the entrances. So that would be the front entrance and then the entrance to the lower level. So the largest improvement on First Zion Baptist Church has been the roof. And it's really been dramatic. It's been a tremendous improvement. It's really, I think, enhanced the look of the building. And of course, it has improved its structural integrity. So we're working with the envelope of the building now to try to get it so that that envelope is secure. And then we'll move to the inside and start restoring the inside. Part of the outside is these 2 small canopies. Right now, they're like shingled and they look pretty sad. They need to match the metal roof that's in place, the new roof, and they need to provide more, protection from the weather. So that's what we're requesting. We have an estimate. The total is $7,675. And we're asking the council for $5,500, which again has already been approved. The foundation will pay the remaining amount. And we think that it'll benefit the town in general, not just because this is an ongoing restoration of a historic building, but because right now the church doesn't have a lot of curb appeal. It's somewhat dilapidated in its appearance. And if we don't keep making these small improvements to the facade and the exterior, we believe as a foundation, then the populace won't generate the enthusiasm and the excitement for the project that we need to get it finished. So we appreciate your consideration and hope that you'll approve the funds. Thank you.
Questions?
Could you clarify what, could you clarify what this is being in place of? You said you're substituting money.
Honestly, I don't remember, Christian, what was it that we asked? Was it the drywall?
The drywall, yeah, the state, they didn't look in the grant for that project. It was,
Was it lead paint abatement?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Walls, right?
Yeah, so the interior of the structure has lead paint on the walls and we need to abate that, but we didn't get enough money to do that. So we are applying for a SHPO grant on the lead abatement issue. So we're seeking monies elsewhere for that. And so we shifted our focus to the canopies. They're more manageable. They're doable. They're small. They'll make we'll get a bigger bang for our buck if we do something on the outside.
Yeah, I can understand that would really enhance the curb appeal.
We really need to, so that people get excited about the project again, because it's been ongoing for quite a while and it's hard to see the progress.
Right. Good. Thank you. for the
Yeah.
clarification.
Anything else?
Okay, I move to approve up to $5,500 from the 906 Park Humanities fund or account to assist in the historic preservation of Zion, First Zion Baptist Church.
Second on the motion, we have a second from Eric. Discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve?
So, this one I'm going to leave that on. This is discussion and action regarding the year 2023 general fund budget revisions. And we have spent 2 hours today going over this.
Not just this one. This was the easy one.
Well, yeah, perfect on the big job.
All right, so this is revision 3 for general fund fiscal 2023. Major income changes include increased projections in B&O tax, hotel motel tax, sales tax, parking revenue, and table gaming. Decreases of note are in fines, fees, and court costs. The net effect is an increased revenue projection of $61,825, setting our budget a little bit over 2.3 million. On the expense side, increases of note include City Hall, which is largely due to the third audit that we are required to hold this year, the first 2 being holdovers from COVID. And then in addition, we have some increased costs associated with holding the town hall meetings in this facility. In the projected budget of the new body radio system for the police department was moved out of police supplies and into public safety. So there's a little bit of a swing you'll see there. Increases and decreases in payroll related items are largely responsible for changes in the clerk, finance, police, and street departments. This revision also confirms that we should be able to meet fiscal 23 funding requests as presented for the year. Any questions?
And with that, I move to approve the fiscal year 2023 general fund revision number 3 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? When I call your name, vote yes or no, this will be a roll call vote. Stormy Costanza,
Yes.
Laurel Drake, Jerry Hutton,
Yes.
Christian Petrocanis.
Yes.
I vote yes, Mayor. Yes.
Okay, next one is discussion and action regarding the public library annual disbursement. This is the annual, this is the library disbursement of, we have in our budget $4,500. Go right to the motion. I move to approve the disbursement of $4,500 from account number 916, library, to the Bolivar Harpersbury Public Library for fiscal 2023.
Second on motion to approve. Second, discussion on motion to approve. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Okay, the next one is discussion and action with the public library reimbursement. This is a reimbursement of $790 for an artistic instruction program that's done for adults 18 and up. So I move to approve disbursement of $790 from the 906 Arts and Humanities account to Bolivar Harpersbury Public Library for reimbursement of the arts programs.
Second on motion to approve. Second, Mr. McKinney, discussion on motion to disperse.
Yeah.
Seven ninety. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
And discussion and action regarding public transit annual disbursement. This is the
EPTA.
There we go. Great people. We approved this for our 2023 budget. Already, so I just moved to approve disbursement of $4,500 from 759 public transit and $3,000 from 402 economic development to the Eastern Panhandle Public Transit for fiscal year 2023 funding.
Second on motion to approve. Second, Mr. Warren. Discussion on motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion?
Okay, the next one is this is from the Rec. This is the discussion act regarding the 2023 Easter egg hunt funding. Okay, so I move to approve up to $250 from 906 Arts and Humanities to support the 2023 Easter egg hunt.
Second from Storm. Discussion on motion to approve. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve?
Who's gonna disapprove of the Easter egg?
The whole game.
Yeah. Okay, and I tell you, this Park and Rec keeps me busy. Okay, so now a discussion action regarding 2023 Music on the Ridge funding. We had a long discussion about this today. I thought it went well, and so I need to approve up to $3,000 from 906 Arts and Humanities and up to $3,000 from 402 Economic Development for the fiscal year 2023 annual Music on the Ridge event.
We have a second on the motion to approve. Second from Laurel. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor of the motion to approve? By the way, Patty did a nice job putting this together, very thorough. All of the information.
Okay, discussion and action regarding reconditioning of the 2008 Crown Victoria for town use. This particular fleet is a police cruiser that has been retired with over 200,000 miles. It's according to the police department, a very solid automobile. I drove the car, I felt it was pretty good, and considering this vehicle is going to be used by our town employee rather than police, this car will pretty much be in now. So this is going to be for Kevin Hamilton, our OCO, and our parking officer, Tim. And they're going to have decals, removable decals put on the site depending on who's driving that car. The car will be removing all the decals, we'll remove the, after removing the decals, we'll have it repainted white. And the lights will be fixed so that it's not, remove the police lights, of course. We'll have a radio and we're going to possibly update the tires. The tires we'll have to check and it'll have to be mechanically checked. So I move to spend up to $4,500 to recondition the 2008 Crown Victoria for town use.
Second from Storm, we have a discussion on a motion to approve up to $4,500 to recondition the ground. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? One. By the way, when Christian did the test drive, the chief disabled the siren and the red lights.
Darn.
That car can still go, let me tell you. Okay, this next one is discussion and action regarding the fiscal year regarding assignment of fiscal year 2024 committed and assigned fund balances. So I'll let Deb kind of take this.
All right, so you have a chart, you should have a good attachment there. You might want to refer to that. All right, part of our annual budgeting includes reviewing and assigning appropriate funds to the restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balances. These are budgeting tools that we can use to reserve funds for future projects and allow us to secure funds for projects that have been committed by the town so they are not consumed for another purpose. At the beginning of fiscal 23, we had $33,500 in the committed fund balance. This included $1,000 under the K-9, $27,500 for a contract to perform stormwater work, and $5,000 left over from the Potomac Street Improvement Fund. After review of these items, Budget and Finance determined today that, or determined previously, that the contract for the stormwater work is null and void, and the Potomac Street has just a few uncontracted items for completion. Therefore, the fiscal 24 budget proposal that you'll be seeing at the next item shows that both the $27,500 for the stormwater contract and the $5,000 from Potomac Street funds be moved to the assigned fund balance under a new project category designated stormwater and streetscape project for a total of $32,500. They also reviewed and proposed a designated IT upgrade category or project to reserve monies for a new town website with an assigned amount of $20,000. Any questions regarding that topic?
I can tell you, it's better for the town to have these moved over. It frees up these locked out monies for better use in the future.
And I don't,
Going to add to this fund over
Right.
time.
it gives a target place for us to, as we want to build up for matching grants and things like that, that we can put it in there. We know that it's there and won't be spent in other areas. So you'll need to move that, the approval and movement of those funds in order to approve the fiscal 24 budget.
$32,550 for the 298 committed fund balances, and to fund the new 297 assigned fund called stormwater and streetscape project. Effective July 1, 2023, fiscal year 2020.
Second on the motion. Second from Christian, discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion?
Okay.
No, wait, the 20,000.
Yes.
Did you say that?
$20,000 committed fund balances
Just put 20,000 into, yep. From unassigned to assigned.
Yes, I move to, first, I just move assign $20,000.
That's fine.
I move to assign $20,000 to the new T97 assigned fund of the storm of IT infrastructure,
Mhm.
effective July 1, 2023, for fiscal year 22.
Second on the motion, second from Christian. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor?
Okay, one more. Discussion action regarding fiscal year, this is important. 2024 fiscal fund budget.
So the handout that you have, this summary sheet, there's a printed updated one. I just had my net movement column not updated, so if you need that. So this one here. All right. Are you ready? Okay, this is the proposed budget for fiscal 2024 general fund and coal severance fund reviewed and by Budget and Finance today. You will note from the summary sheet that as in past practice, we have conservatively projected income and attempted to capture as many expenses and funding requests as possible. With the carry forward balances, we are projecting an increase in the proposed budget of $103,710, bringing our total budget to $2.4 million. In expenses, wages are included with a 5% COLA increase and the appropriate step increase in each department. Additionally, there are increases proposed for elected officials effective in the next administration. Ordinance changes to codify these elected official wage changes will be coming forward in the next month. Included in the expenses are funds to upgrade the town website, some additional equipment purchase and rentals in the street department, and limited maintenance at town hall. Other departments have been set with operational expenses similar to fiscal 2023. The coal severance budget that you see in the levy estimate remains similar to past years with the income designated to fund part of the annual fire department contribution. Any questions on the 24 budget?
And it's correct that we went through cuts to get it into a good range.
Yes, there were a lot of proposals in the general fund area, projects that we want to get started and get involved in. Many of those were cut in order to balance out the budget with a conservative income line. And as we have done in past years, we will revise our budget this time of year next year, and assuming that our funds are as conservative as we think they are, and we'll get a boost like we have now, we'll be able to open those expenses up if needed.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 general fund budget as presented.
We have a second from Christian. We have a motion to approve from Storm, a second from Christian. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion? I believe this has to be a roll call vote.
I would do a
Okay.
roll call.
Call the
I
roll.
don't think you have to report it on the sheet, but I think you should do it.
Yeah. So when your name is called, you will vote yes or no. Storm B. Costanza,
Yes.
Laurel Drake,
Yes.
Jerry Hutton,
Yes.
Christian Petroconis.
Yes.
And I vote aye, Mayor. Yes. Okay, good job, Christian.
Go get some oxygen.
Yeah. Water Department, Steve, come on up and have some fun.
Oh,
Okay, as Greg has already mentioned, our big activity for the month was the 340 leak. I'll talk a little bit about that, but before I get to that, I'll just mention we did do estimated billing for the month of February. That's the first time we've done estimated billing in quite some time, as I understand it. And that was really driven by all the rest of the stuff that we were doing with the 340 leak, and we just didn't have time to get out and read the meters. But we will be doing an actual billing this next billing cycle. And then before I get to, well, yeah, I also usually give you the water produced and the water billed. I don't, it makes no sense to give you the water billed for this month because it was estimated billing. In terms of water produced, we produce 6.6 million gallons in February compared to 6.4 million gallons in January. However, if I put January on a 28-day basis, the same basis as February, there was an increase of water produced about 14% from January compared to February, and that was largely due to the 340 leak. Quick timeline on the 340 leak. And I don't have the date, this was the day after President's Day. On Tuesday of that week, about 1 p.m., we detected that there was something going on. Tuesday evening, Greg and Lynn drove around looking for stuff. We had our guys out Tuesday afternoon driving around looking for things, talking to the folks at the PSD about abnormal inflows that they may or may not have seen. Wednesday morning, we did detect an abnormal stream running down the lower part of what's now Paper Street, Union Street, one of Bolivar's paper streets, down there by Lake Quigley Drive. We tested that and it was clearly chlorinated. So we knew we had figured out where the water was coming out of. Then the trick was, where was the leak? We spent Wednesday afternoon looking at turning off some of the valves on Union Street to try to isolate it. We went out, I guess it was midnight on Wednesday, till about 3 o'clock in the morning on Thursday to do some listening. That was Tom Hall and Ryan and myself when everything was quiet. And we basically were able to isolate it down to the very lower part of 340. That gave us a good idea on Thursday where to do a little bit more isolation. And I would say by sometime on Thursday afternoon, we had determined that it was under 340. We notified Department of Highways and we engaged Greenridge. Greenridge showed up on 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday and pretty much worked through sometime on Sunday. By Monday, we had the water connected back and had sampled the water. We got our result back on Tuesday, which allowed us to remove the boil water notice. The work that was done with Greenridge, we basically removed, we severed the pipe up the end of Union Street. We pulled 115 feet of pipe out from a culvert, and then they pushed new pipe back up through the culvert and reconnected it. Greg mentioned the folks who were really stepped up. I'd also want to say actually the entire team over at the water department. We had Ryan and Sean out in the field looking for stuff, turning valves on and off for us. But we also had Chris Steyer, Chris Spanos, and Tom Hall keeping the water plant going. We were at a point where I had estimated we were losing probably about 150 gallons a minute. We produced 350 gallons a minute. So we were doing everything we could just to keep the tank level, even. And that required, 24/7 work at the plant until we had isolated it and could turn off the valve. So we basically we shut off service to the 4 customers and the PSD down on Lake Quigley Drive. And but we also had, I mentioned the PSD, they had drawings for the work when the pipes were laid in across 340, and had we not had their support, they were able to produce those drawings. We would have been looking, 40 feet away. Department of Highways guy probably would have stroked out because every time we removed a boulder on the edge of 340, he was getting nervous that 340 was going to collapse. So this allowed us to really focus in, where we were looking with their drawings. They were a big help. And certainly Our billing clerk Kathy was very helpful in getting notices out, figuring out which customers we needed to notify and all the rest. And the mayor and Deb were fantastic to, suggest who I needed to call, who I needed to notify and all the rest. So that's pretty much where we stand. We still have to file a permit with the DOH. It's an after the fact permit, but we, have to file that with them just to complete paperwork. And I think that's about what I've got. The leak appeared to be between two sections. We might have more on this later, but there's a gasket. It looks to me like they damaged the pipe when they put it together. So, and it had just worked out and separated, over time. It looked like it was not necessarily secured at the bottom end as solidly as it should have been. The work that we deliberately paid, for the right kinds of gaskets that actually have metal teeth in them to grip the pipes, because pipes are on a slope, and just the weight of the pipe and the pressure in the pipe tend to push the pipe sections apart. So we put in a different gasket to hold it together, and they put in a concrete thrust block at the bottom end that would hopefully hold it all, in position over time, so that, another, what do we think? Another 20 years, this won't separate on us.
And
So, yeah.
probably impossible to say, but do you think that this may have been responsible for some of the leaking that's been experienced?
No, because actually, well, some, but not as much as I was hoping. I think maybe it might be about somewhere in 2 or 3% of our production that we've been losing. Not quite as much as we were, really anticipating. It does look like it had a little bit of an effect, but it's not, when we talk about a 50% loss, this one doesn't, this isn't the holy grail. The one we're currently looking on Union Street, though, because we're back more or less to where we were before that Monday, before that Tuesday. But the one on Union Street, we haven't seen the one on Union Street that we were looking at, today, the last few days, that one is not, that's not showing a sharp drop off in terms of the tanks. I think that one's been there for a while. And, that one could be, 20 to 30% of our water loss right now. So, it'd be nice it's not, that one I would say it's not urgent, but it's not an emergency, but it is urgent that we look at it and try to address that one.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your hard work on this.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Yep, there we go. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Laurel, Water Commission.
Okay. Just 2 items today, this month. One is, the Water Commission met last month and we discussed the spring. There are two water sources coming into the water plant right now. One is from a spring and one is from Elk Run, which is a creek. And there was a motion that was unanimously approved to recommend that the water utility put some automatic air release valves on the pipe that comes from the spring, because without those valves, we don't get the full measure of water from the spring. If anything should happen to our Elk Run source, we would want to make sure we are getting the maximum water that possible from the spring. And with these air release valves, which are fairly easy, just screw it on, that will release air that's in the pipes because of the way the pipe's laid. And we would get our full flow. Of course, we also have the Potomac River as another source if something did happen to Elk Run. But we are as an advisory board, we're recommending that the water utility get those valves and put them on so that we're ready in case anything happens.
Okay,
And any question about that?
yeah, in an emergency, would the spring water be accessible at all?
Well, it's on right now. And so there's water flowing in from that. It's just not, because of air in the pipes, it's not a full force of water coming in. You need the pipe is not a straight pipe from it goes up and down. So air collects at the top of it and there's a valve to release the air. So we don't go over there and hand release the way they used to do it.
But
If-
in an emergency, would it be possible to do that?
Yes, yes, they could go and hand release those valves and do that every day and that would.
Of course, it would not be.
That's true.
It'd be more difficult for certain.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, that's right. The second item is the leak adjustment policy that we're talking about today. Once we have our first hearing of this today, we will be advertising in the paper and at the next meeting will be a public hearing. It'll be advertised and customers will be notified of the change in the leak adjustment rate so that they can make a public comment on it. And that's all for those comments.
Thank you, Laura. Let's go to 4D, Roman numeral 3, discussion action regarding fiscal year 2023 water budget revision number 4. Debbie?
Okay, so while we've been working towards this revision as a matter of course, the emergency break at Union and Route 340 accelerated our need to complete this revision to the water budget so that we could pay our vendor who responded so swiftly their invoice in a timely manner.
I think you're on number 3 on the budget, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Part of our obligation when we enter into bonds with the state or local agencies is that we make monthly contributions to a fund that we, Harpers Ferry Waterworks and the town of Harpers Ferry, hold as an asset. It's called bond renewal and replacement. The contributions that we make are based on a percentage of each month's water billings. In the expense area of our budget under maintenance and mains, there's a line denoted as 127. And this is the expense of the transfer that we do every month called bond renewal and replace. Back up at the very top of the income section, the very first line is called bond renewal and replacement. And this represents the income of this transfer into our account each month for the whole year. At the end of the year, we take whatever's in there and we move it over as an asset on our balance sheet. According to the bond guidelines, this asset account may be used for emergency maintenance. Therefore, we can pay the invoice for the repair of the leak that occurred last month from the renewal and replacement account, and it doesn't affect our operating expenses. So in this budget revision, we are adding to the line at the bottom of the income section that's titled Project Soft Cost Reimbursement. We're adding the notation renew and replace funds. So in that line, we're not only going to have the soft cost reimbursements that we've put into this budget, but the renew and replacement funds. And there will be $33,600 added to that line to pay this, to cover the income for this invoice. After we take that amount out of our renew and replace fund, the remaining balance in that fund will be $168,000. And we will, of course, continually add each month to the account. Overall, our income is trending well and as predicted for the year. On the expense side, however, we are still experiencing the residual effect of the final 7 months of construction at the water plant. Converting the new system and the learning curve and finding a new normal operation and costs. Our labor, chemical, and utility costs in particular are higher than anticipated. Our Public Works Administrator is working diligently to focus on these areas to control costs through scheduling with reduced overtime and consulting time, as well as planned purchasing based on projected needs. So looking forward, we should be able to experience more predictable costs. Our Public Works Administrator has determined the next focus to improve the cost of operations is the reduction of water loss and improved accuracy in metered water. To that end, this revision incorporates the leasing of ground penetrating radar equipment in the next quarter to locate leaks in our distribution system that will drive a repair schedule in the coming months. In addition, he will be working with radio read meter vendors in the near future that will begin the process of selecting new radio read meter system to provide improved accuracy and efficiencies to our customers and our staff. For this fiscal year, however, due to the increased cost over the past months as we have wound down the construction project, and with conservative estimates to close out the year, we are adding an additional $38,000 from our soft cost reimbursements to the water plant upgrade project to balance out the budget. If we do not expend all of those predicted costs on the budget, then we do not need the reimbursement. And of course, we'll work to that end. Are there any questions on this revision?
I move to approve the fiscal year 2023 water budget revision number 4 as submitted.
Second on the motion to approve. Second from Laurel. Discussion on a motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay, discussion and action regarding payment for emergency repair at Union Street. Debbie?
Okay, I have that motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So the Green Ridge contractors who invoiced us for the work they did to make that repair at the bottom of Union Street, I move to approve invoice number 23-023 to Green Ridge Contractors in the amount of $33,587.90 from the renewal and replacement account.
Thank you. Second on the motion to approve.
Second.
Second from Storm. Discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion to approve?
Aye.
Opposed? 0. Laurel, do you want to take number 5?
Yes. We have a couple of nominations to the Water Commission. Mac McCarty, his term actually ended in December and I didn't notice, so I am not nominating him again. And I nominate Mac McCarty to continue in seat 5 on the Water Commission for a term that ends the 31st of December, 2025.
Second on the motion to approve Mac McCarty.
Oh, it's a roll nomination.
I'm sorry. Any other nominations for that position?
5 and 6 actually should be combined together.
Okay, go ahead and do the second one then, Laurel.
I also nominate Michael Rock. I also nominate Michael Rock to fill seat 6 on the Water Commission, which for a term that also ends 31st of December, 2025.
Thank you. Any other nominations from the floor? Calling for a vote.
Okay, we have 2 nominations for Mac McCarty and Michael Rock. When I call your name, announce which of those 2 nominees you would like to appoint. Laurel Drake.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah,
There are 2 open seats, is that?
there's 2 seats.
So yes on both is an option.
Jerry Hutton.
I'd like to nominate both
The
or approve both.
Storm DiCostanzo,
Yes on both.
Christian Petroconis,
Yes, yes.
and I vote yes for both, Mayor.
McCarty and Rock.
Mac McCarty and Michael Rock are each appointed for a seat on the Water Commission with the term expiring 31st December 2025.
Correct. Planning Commission. I'm going to ask the recorder to read the Planning Commission's report for the record.
Okay. Chris Craig asked to have this report read at this evening's meeting. The Planning Commission's February meeting dealt primarily with stakeholder lists for our comprehensive plan update. The next comprehensive plan meeting with our consultants will be at 6 p.m. April 6th in Town Hall. As always, council members and members of the public are welcome to attend. Barring last-minute urgent business, there will be no regular March planning meeting. The permit review flowcharts have been circulated to all appropriate staff and town officials for comment. I hope to make any necessary edits based on those comments and submit to council for approval at its April meeting. Lastly, thanks to the Ordinance Review Committee and council for your work and consideration of the 2 ordinance revisions recommended by planning that are up for second reading tonight.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, we're pleased to have Guy Hammer this evening. But Guy, you can bring your boss up here and give your report. You have a seat over here if you want to take her with you.
Oh, where?
Or you can stand there, whatever you're comfortable with.
My assistant, Georgina. Hi.
Okay. Couple updates. The 6, I'll try to keep them brief and answer questions, but we had a welcome letter that was sent out, and I wanted to give thanks to Christian, Patty, or Debbie. Alyssa. Okay. We're able to get that out, and that provided an overview of what our mission is, as well as links to key resources and homeowner survey. So hopefully everybody got that.
The homeowner survey is going out
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you. Number 2 is the Weaver Gillison House. So we have an update on that. Storm and I have been working with the family and a representative from the NAACP to figure out what the next steps are with the family, what they want to do with the property. So we're having that conversation tomorrow. A couple recent projects that may be of interest would be a new construction project on Putnam Street, and where the initial plan was 500 square foot design. So it raises the potential issue of tiny home construction and whether we're going to see more of that, and also relates to Appendix A style guidelines, whether we want to have some kind of minimum requirement for new construction, because apparently today it's very subjective, related to a desire for new construction to fit in with the form of the current neighborhood street. So we had discussion with the family about that, and they actually doubled the size effectively of the property to help conform with that. So you can imagine existing property owners would prefer not to have a tiny home built next to their house. So something we'll probably end up, I think it's worthwhile for people to think about, because we are looking for input on this. Or is Harpers Ferry the right place for people to build tiny homes? Another topic where it would be great to get input are some of the secondary structures in town. We're talking about tool sheds, outhouses, single car garages. All of Harpers Ferry is a historic district, and with the historic properties, if you had a outhouse listed as a contributing structure 10 years ago, that can now interfere with your ability to secure funding for the restoration, preservation of your primary structure. So you have to maintain everything in order to qualify for these programs. Now, there are a lot of secondary structures that people really don't want to preserve. They're letting degrade demolition by neglect is a term that's used. So do we want to be flexible in letting people let some of these structures go so that they can then qualify for state and federal programs that help them gain funding for the preservation of the primary structure? So that's something we're planning to talk about, but some people feel very strongly about secondary structures, that they need to be preserved, but there's a lot of money that's being left on the table because of that specific issue. That brings us to tax credit programs. There are state and federal tax credit programs that's, I think, should be probably a primary driver this year and going forward for the homeowners of historic properties. There's money available for all kinds of repair work, internal, external, HVAC, plumbing, and helping people understand that it can be helpful to group these projects together to have a larger dollar figure attached to the project. Because if it exceeds 20% of the home value, if you can collect a bunch of projects that exceed 20% of the home value, then you can qualify for these tax incentive programs. So roofing, all these things. So I wanted to share some information about that. We'll discuss it at our next meeting. But it feels like that should be a real core driver, because I've talked with multiple homeowners now who are not aware at all of these programs. And they're just doing work without taking advantage of all this money. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially per property that could be used to help offset the cost of using historic materials and styles. And lastly, that brings us to Appendix A. So I think a lot of these things that I've just mentioned relate to Appendix A styles, standards, guidelines that we've been working to revise and hope soon to provide recommendations. I'm not sure if this next meeting could be the final, potentially, but there's a lot that goes into it. So that's my report.
Any questions for Guy? Thank you guys so much for coming and make this a habit.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Patty, do you have a report? Let me handle Roman numeral 2, okay? Stand on your tiptoes.
Get a chair. Stand in the chair. Hi, I'm here tonight to give the council an update on the upcoming planned town events that will close out fiscal year 23. On Saturday, April 8th at 11 a.m., we're going to have the town Easter egg hunt at the gazebo, and that's for children ages 1 to 12. So we will hide about 300 candy-filled eggs for the kids to find, and each child will leave with a stuffed animal. It's a bunny, and I have them in my office. They're so cute. On Saturday, April 22nd, from 9 to noon, we are going to do an Earth Day cleanup at the Children's Park. The cleanup is going to include building a 12-foot by 24-foot pavilion. We're going to paint some of the existing equipment and trim the shrubs. On behalf of Parks and Rec, I have submitted a zoning compliance permit application to the OCO for his review, so he can see what we're doing, where it's going to be, and I have that application with me tonight. We're trying to obtain a discount price on this pavilion. We're talking to 2 different sources, so we hope we come in under what we have in our hands. The remaining asphalt in that park is scheduled to be removed in March. And that's going to clear the way for the play structure that we're hoping to construct sometime in fiscal 24. Parks and Rec is applying for 2 grant applications with the hope of receiving funds, which will go towards the play structure. The Van Vliet family has been very, very involved in the creation of the new park. And they have created a 503c nonprofit in order to further assist with grants and funding fundraising activities. I have a rough drawing of what we're going to be doing at the park. We've talked about this a lot, and unfortunately, I don't see anybody coming to our meetings, and I haven't really posted this. I am not an artist, but here's kind of a layout of where everything is going to go. You can see on the application that I submitted to Kevin on the plat where the pavilion structure will be going, and it'll be kind of up near the front, but near the chain link fence. We are scheduling a lot of volunteers on the 22nd to help us build this. The weekend before, we will clear and lay pavers down, because we are going to have to build do a couple footers. That'll all be done the week before. And then hopefully my volunteers, who seem to think that they can get this up in half a day, will be there.
What date, what's the date?
Earth Day, April 22nd, Saturday to Saturday.
9 to 12.
Okay.
The other thing that we are looking at, and I don't know what the time frame will be, hopefully we have enough funding that we can afford this sooner than later, is we're going to put some wind screening up along the chain link fence after it's all cleared off, similar to what Swan has. But there will be no logo on it. It's going to be green.
Just a picture of the mayor.
Well, we were going to do that, and then you can do sections where you can add things. So
I don't know about that.
we will be putting a screening up so that the neighbors will have some privacy. The last event for fiscal year 23 will be held on Saturday, June 3rd, and that is our Music on the Ridge. We're in the very early stages of planning this, so more details will be available once we have solidified the musicians and the location. And I want to thank the Budget and Finance Committee for earlier today having a good conversation about that and providing the funding for the event. Fiscal year 24 will start out with the 4th of July celebration. We'll be working with the Women's Club in planning this annual event. I'm not sure how much Parks and Rec will play a role in this, as I'm told the Women's Club may want to take it back, but we're eager and willing to work with them to see if we can have so much fun like we did last time. So we hope to see everybody at some of our activities. We have changed the time of our meetings. We are still meeting on the first Monday of the month, but we're no longer meeting at noon. We're meeting at 5:30.
What time was that? Sir? What time?
5:30. Okay. So I just really wanted to give you guys a little bit more idea of what we're doing with the children's park. It's going to be pretty good when we're done.
Thanks, Patty. Any
Thanks.
questions for Patty? The other agenda item that I'll cover under Parks and Rec is Roman numeral 2, discussion action regarding an appointment to the Parks and Rec Commission. We had an individual to volunteer for this position. The individual is not of the age of majority. So in consultation with the town's attorney, the individual can serve as an ex officio member, non-voting, will not count toward a quorum, and the parents must be in attendance at all times. I cannot mention the name of the family or the child because the parents are not here, and the child obviously is not of the age of majority, so that's not public information I can make. So Patty, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to confirm the individual this evening, and that'll have to be a time where the parents are here with their consent, and then it can be named public, okay? Ordinance Review Committee, Kevin, I think you got the next 4.
Okay. Let me pull it up here. What's that number?
2023-01.
HI. Okay. So the first ordinance we have for consideration is ordinance number 2023-01. An ordinance to amend section 133.07 of the codified ordinances of Harpers Ferry to comply with the West Virginia Code. This concerns the Planning Commission. And it was removal of one line in that section.
So what is the procedure for this?
Motion and second for approval of second and final reading of ordinance 2023-01.
I move to have the second reading and approval of ordinance 2023. Ordinance 2023-01. Planning Commission providing for compliance with West Virginia Code.
Do I have a second on the second reading? Second from Jerry. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Okay, Kevin?
Okay, next item is ordinance number 2023-02. An ordinance to amend and reenact Article 1104 of the codified ordinances, renaming the tree committee and establishing the tree commission's role as a free and separate deliberative body of town government. And to address some of the concerns that were made in public comments earlier, this ordinance will not actually affect the work of the tree committee, now to be the tree commission, other than to remove a layer of bureaucracy, really, that didn't need to be there. As it is right now, the tree committee's budget falls under the umbrella of the Planning Commission. The tree committee gives a report to the Planning Commission each year, and that same report is given to the town council each year. Basically, the town council has ultimate authority over the tree committee now. That's not going to change. The only thing that's being changed is the additional layer in between that really didn't need to be there. Back in 2008, when I wrote the tree conservation ordinance, there was some opposition to having a tree board of any kind or a tree ordinance. But we had to have this ordinance, and we had to have an authoritative body in order to qualify to be named a Tree City USA. And Tree City USA is important because that qualifies us for certain grants each year from the federal government and from the state as well. There are 4 requirements that have to be met each year, and that was one of those. In order to get this ordinance passed at that time, we had to basically place the tree committee under the Planning Commission. That was the compromise. And it's sort of unwieldy. I have not heard of any other country anywhere in the United States that does this. And so I think it's time to remove the tree committee from under the umbrella of the Planning Commission. It doesn't really need to be there, and renaming it as well to Tree Commission, because really it functions as its own commission already, just without that name.
Just one clarification, so if I think I understand it correctly, there is accountability to public officials through town council, is that correct?
Yes, that continues, that's unchanged.
Okay. And this is about deliberative bodies, not about people, when we're talking about how we structure the government.
Right.
One of the things practically, I was on the Planning Commission.
Lean forward. Lean forward.
I was in the Planning Commission, and I remember that whenever they wanted to do something, they had to go through the Planning Commission, which then in turn had to take to the town council. And I just thought it was like pretty laborious process, and it will streamline things a lot, because some of the things they have are fairly urgent. Believe it or not, I know trees grow slow, but they also fall down. And sometimes they need quicker decisions. So I think this is would be an improvement.
I have a couple of questions. Kevin, so you said this removes a layer of bureaucracy. Does it remove any oversight for the tree commission?
Not really. I mean, the Planning Commission really is has an advisory role over the tree committee as it is now, not an authoritative role. over the tree committee. In reality, the authoritative role over the tree committee is the town council. That's not going to change.
You know, the planning commission still retains advisory powers with regards to the tree commission, and they still have a relationship, but they don't supervise it and don't have to have a separate level of approval. Ultimately, it was always the town council that has the oversight role, and so this takes one extra step out, as Christian pointed out, and still leaves oversight to the town council, and the planning commission still has input with regards to making recommendations, which presumably their advice would be forwarded with whatever proposals the tree committee had. They wouldn't have to, but it would give additional, the information that we need now from planning commission could still be there. It wouldn't affect that. So I don't understand the alarms with regards to giving up and, you know, letting someone run rampant over tearing down trees. I just don't see
Well,
the objection.
I have another question, which is, so is it possible that the tree commission can make a decision to remove a tree and it gets removed and they don't ask the town council and it just is done? Is that possible under this setup?
Not legally.
I think it would be subject to the same rules as it has been under planning commission.
I'm sorry,
So
I couldn't understand.
it would be subject to the same rules as it currently does under planning commission. Planning commission, I don't think really has a power role, but they have an advisory role. So it's not an executive
I
part of the
think that's
government.
what the worry is that so does that mean that the tree commission must submit the trees that they would like to remove to the town council for approval? So that, is that what that means?
It doesn't do that with the planning commission now, I don't believe.
No.
They don't do a tree by tree thing. They work with our tree firm is Antietam.
Antietam tree.
And Antietam has trees.
Arborists.
Huh?
Arborists.
They're arborists, and they just don't cut trees down willy-nilly. I mean, they've been watching some trees for years. And you know, they'll trim them, but then after a while, the tree might be diseased it has to come down because it becomes a public safety hazard.
Yeah, each tree that is removed is assessed by an arborist before that tree is removed. And there's a report that is issued about that particular tree. The tree committee then makes the decision to remove that tree based on the advice from the arborist.
I've had, they've removed 3 trees from my easement in front of my house. The trees had one tree that was it was a good tree, but the tree was leaning really heavily, a large tree, and it was going to cross the road and potentially hit a house. Had another tree was heavily diseased.
Well, I think trees like that, there's no question. The ones that our questions are about are trees that perhaps there's a difference of opinion of whether it's too big for the spot it's in. Some people might like it being there and other people might say it's too big. It wasn't meant to be that.
Well, if I
big.
can ask to that, or generally, Kevin, to your memory, 14 years or longer, or the existence of the tree committee, did it ever report directly and take, if you want to say, orders from the planning commission?
No.
So there's no structural change by removing that layer.
And they have to be very select in removing trees because they have a very limited budget. It doesn't come from us. It comes from these grants that are from the state. Right. And they only have a few trees they can cut each year because not only do they cut them down, they have to remove them. And so they're not going out there willy-nilly cutting trees down. I can assure you.
I don't think the worry is that they're just randomly cutting down trees. I don't think that's it at all.
And are there currently vacancies on the tree committee?
There are.
So people who are concerned would have, we're happy to have them.
Guy, did you have something you wanted? He serves on the tree committee.
Yeah, I know the tree committee. It's mentioned, but it's some passionate discussions with Christy Huddle. So
She's of the opinion that climate change is a serious issue with many of the large shade trees of certain species. And that basically these are ticking time bombs. When we get these strong winds, they come through, they blow them down, and there's a good chance they're gonna land on houses and destroy the houses. And so she's basically got a hit list of these trees that are of a certain maturity and a certain species that they fall into that risk category. And so if you're wondering how these things are picked.
And
that's
does,
kind of-
does she consult with arborists about these trees?
You know, I'm not sure who she's consulting with, but there's Antietam Tree Company.
Yes.
So I do know that climate change is factoring heavily into kind of the concern there is that some of these trees are becoming more susceptible to drought faster than others, and better to take them down than to wait for the wind to push them over onto something.
We've seen that this year. A lot of trees in town have fallen. Ivy gets into them and that's it.
So I think it speaks to maybe the timeliness factor.
Guy, I have one more question for you. So is it required that the tree committee give due notice to adjacent landowners that they're going to take a tree down?
No,
Okay,
not-
so there's
it's not-
nothing in the ordinance about that?
I'm not sure if it's in ordinance. I know it's not being done. It's come up, I guess, repeatedly, that people have said, hey, can you give me some notice that you're gonna be here chopping down this tree? We love this tree. And the response basically has been, no, it's too hard for us to coordinate these communications.
Well, we should look at that, but I don't think it bears on the current.
I can tell you, I
movement.
had trees that were gonna be removed by Antietam, and it took 6 months to get them here. They come when they can, but you can't schedule it. You just can't.
Okay,
All right.
we're only talking trees on public property, correct? Yes. Yeah, we're only talking trees on public
Hold on, I
property.
think we have one.
All right, let's put this to a vote.
Council, I'm one member of the planning commission. I can answer some of the questions you might have tonight.
We have any questions for Roberta?
Be happy to clarify some of it.
Okay, hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They about to ask for. Now, that happened on my lot. A days ago, the ashes are dying and. Wind's blowing them over.
And people are certainly taking trees down in town as well.
Yeah. All right,
And
all right, we're sitting at the second reading for this.
And Budget and Finance actually put money in for removing trees, so we're in a tree town. But I can assure you, the tree committee has been probably one of the hardest working committees I've ever seen. They really do a lot of meetings. They're out there physically, they're out there watering a lot of, you see, we're talking about trees coming down, but they also plant a lot of trees. And they're constantly watering them and fertilizing them and, keeping them protected from deer. So this particular, I think it's great that they're now going to be a commission. They really deserve it for their hard work.
And they're constantly, as we've already said here, they're constantly seeking grants for the work that they do as well. And those grants pay for not just tree removal, but tree care, tree replacement, and so forth. And I failed to mention, the tree committee currently has a representative from the planning commission on the tree committee, and that's not going to change. So the planning commission will still have a direct relationship with the tree committee.
So it's fair to
Tree
say,
commission.
planning commission will continue to have an advisory role regarding the tree committee.
They'll know what's going on.
Yeah, don't know what's going on.
Roberta, who is the planning commission member on the tree committee?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So I would like to make a motion to approve second and final reading of ordinance 2023-02 tree conservation.
Second on the motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second from Jerry and discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve?
Aye.
Okay, the third ordinance is ordinance number 2023-03, and ordinance amending Article 140 of the codified ordinances by increasing the number of members on the Parks and Recreation Commission. And that would expand the membership from 3 to 5.
5, correct.
Good idea.
Sorry, this is the second reading? And-
Yeah.
Okay. I move to approve the second and final reading of ordinance 2023-03 Parks and Recreation Commission, increasing the number of members on the commission from 3 to 5.
Second on the motion to approve. Second from Christian, discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion to approve?
Aye.
And the last ordinance we have for consideration is ordinance number 2023-04. An ordinance to amend Article 905 of the codified ordinances of Harpers Ferry, increasing the water leak adjustment rate and modifying how the rate is calculated. And this is first reading for approval. I'm not sure if you have.
Well, I can explain that, the change is, part of which is not really ordinance. It comes from the PSC, which says that you can only be considered for a leak adjustment if your very big water bill is more than double the 12-month average. If it's less than that, then one wouldn't be considered for a water leak. And then this leak adjustment rate, which is 86 cents per 1,000 gallons, would only apply to the amount that was above that double of the 12-month average. And the regular rate would be applied to all the usage below that. And that's actually what is in this new ordinance.
So it's as recommended, or is it recommended or required by the PSC?
It's in their water rules that
Yeah.
this is the new way to
Basically
do it.
codifying.
This is how you need to do it.
codifying the rules.
Got it. Yeah. I move to conduct the first reading of ordinance 2023-04 water tariff, increasing the water leak adjustment rate.
Second on the motion. Second from Laurel, discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Thank you to the committee for getting that so quickly.
Laurel, thanks for doing all the legwork on this too. Having to deal with PSC and all that.
Yeah, I might add for the mayor's information, the ordinance review committee spent some time researching or ordinances of various towns on disposal of surplus property. And we ended up finding in the end that we already have an ordinance that actually follows, embodies 2 of the ordinances. I guess it was Charlestown, and what was the other?
It was Martinsburg and Elkins.
Elkins, yeah, Elkins embodied some of the best elements of those ordinances. So we actually didn't need to write a new one. So we'll inform you, and that we spent some time, and then we're surprised we already have an ordinance. So just to answer your request, because that's one of the first requests you made for the committee.
I have to say that's probably my fault, because I knew we had that ordinance, but I think that I thought that it was not as extensive as it is and well written as it is. So.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Parking committee, Christian, you have anything to report, or the chief?
I do. The parking committee has been working very hard to come up with these, and actually these are the hang tags that'll be on the visors of cars. These are overnight visitors staying in our short-term rentals and our B&Bs in town that are in the Camp Hill area. They will be using these in lieu of the guest passes that we used to use, which were difficult to deal with, in that we had to get them back. As a B&B owner, I can tell you, it's hard to get them back when they take them. But this could be a little souvenir. And Melissa really, and I think Patty was involved, and they did a really yeoman's job in getting these ready. This program will be effective April 1st. for all the businesses, short-term rentals and B and Bs in Camp Hill zone, residential zone.
Good job, Christian.
Thank you.
Town council update or announcements from any council member on anything?
I have a brief update.
Sure.
Very brief, but I'll take questions if there are any. For stormwater, the draft of the green infrastructure and stormwater conceptual master plan is nearly complete. Input is being incorporated from members of the steering committee, composed of members from Harpers Ferry, Town of Bolivar, and the Park Service. And after which a final steering committee meeting will take place prior to scheduling and holding a public open house.
Okay, thanks, Storm. Any other council member? Okay. Unfinished business, A, discussion action on restoration of the Office Operations Committee. Jerry, I believe
Yes,
that's yours.
Chris and I met and went over our vision of what the Office Operations Committee should be. And we sent you an outline. This is not like some of our other committees. It doesn't have set meetings. It's sort of there to when needed, and also to provide general oversight, independent oversight for the town council of personnel and office management, and also to serve the employees of the town as sort of like an HR office for our employees. We would become active at the request of the mayor when there was hiring or recruitment issues, and trying to do recruitment, organize advertising, and set up interviews. If there were, one of the advantages of having this exist is if there are complaints submitted about improper actions of members of the government, whether they be members of our commission or the council or whatever, that this is a body that could do preliminary investigations and negotiate and try to resolve the problems so that we don't have to go into grievance or other procedures. I've listed on the memo that you were sent, one of the changes that we sort of envisioned right now is just Chris and I are informally on this committee, but we thought that we should really have 3 people on it. And I think a possibility for improved relations and input from employees would be to have the 3rd member, not necessarily from the council, but possibly someone from the office staff that would help liaison and help, point out issues and help advise the other council members of things that we should be doing or that are needed by the town. We don't, this operations committee existed before, but it was never in an ordinance, and I don't think we need to have it as an ordinance. The mayor has already submitted to us a request that we examine methods for evaluating employees to see if we can improve, and they do research and see if we can improve the methods of evaluations to make them fairer and less painful to all parties involved. So this is the type of thing. So I'd like to have a authority or general consensus from the council that we can continue operating, and then I can talk to the mayor, or I welcome your suggestions as to whether another member of the council wants to serve on this, or we can look into a volunteer from one of our, from our office staff, one of our employees. So that's, basically what we've done. And I hope you all have received I think you received the outline, which is sort of talking points that we envision the functions and authority of this committee to be. Of course, we would continue. The mayor is as our chief executive. The council is the governing body, and that's we're basically a body, oversight body, and not only assist the mayor but also provide oversight and information to the council.
So it sounds like it's a little different than the Office Operations Committee that used to exist. It sounds like it's a codification more or less of what we've been doing, but instead of it being an ad hoc task force, there would be 2 council members appointed and probably someone from the office as this committee, although that could be problematic if you're dealing with office issues. There might need to be a swing or someone for those cases. So might it be more appropriate to call it, say, an office advisory panel? And I mention that because in the ordinances, the word committee has a specific meaning. And this sounds like it doesn't, like there's, I think one power a committee has, that it can hold public hearings if it's designated a committee.
Well, we still be able to do investigations
Yeah.
and do all these functions.
Oh, yeah.
You're saying it's a panel rather than a committee?
Yeah, just to distinguish it from its former function, as I understand it. Again, I wasn't around, but my understanding is it was when there might have been executives, chief executives who were less engaged, that you needed people actively managing the office. Whereas this sounds like it's more of a task force to assist the executive and also deal with personnel issues as they might come up.
Well, I think it's pretty close to what office operations did before. I mean, the main change is opening a possibility of having a non-council member on the committee was something we thought would open it up and make it add to the HR function and the service to the employees as well. But yeah, I don't think the functions are much different than what we did. I was on the
I don't
head of
know.
it before, and it's pretty close to what we did before.
Yeah, I think this thing has a lot of merit. Jerry and myself, let's see it, before it was you and me and Charlotte and Hardy, and we dealt with some fairly significant personnel issues. And I thought it was very, very beneficial. Jerry, I do have some additional thoughts on this that I want to share with you and Chris. There are two significant West Virginia code sightings that cover this kind of thing that we need to be careful of.
Sure.
That we don't step on. And then I think we also need to be very cognizant of, we are the public sector. And you and I both know that there are certain management and supervisory things that are different in the public sector than in the private sector. And we've got to make sure that we adhere to best practices for the public sector. And I've got some notes that I think may be very helpful for you and Chris. And I want to ask the rest of the council, if you've got some ideas that you want to share with Jerry and Chris, now would be a good time to put your thoughts together, just like you just did, Storm, and put it on a piece of paper. So whenever Chris gets back, what, in 2 weeks or?
I think it's about 2 weeks.
When he comes back, I'll share with some notes that I have. I spent, quite a bit of time going through what you have. I think it's a great start. I just think it needs a little bit of fine tuning and make sure that we're, that we don't step on West Virginia code and that we don't step on best practices for management and supervision in the public sector. I think those are two things that we should make sure that we focus on. But I want to, thank you, Jerry, for taking this on. I hope it's not going to end up being a heartache for you. We don't intend it to be that way. Anything else for
Yeah, I
Jerry?
wanted to add, I remember when it was the committee on the fire council when I was there. And they did a really good job, at least I remember well, on the handbook. Because our handbook was really out of date. It needed to be updated, and I thought they did a really good job, and I think it's pretty current now, even today.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of merit to.
I think a lot of the thanks for that would have to go to Nancy
Oh, yeah,
Case. I know
Nancy.
that she did a tremendous amount
She
of
did.
work on that.
She killed it.
But also Patty, and I'm not sure who else now, was also involved with that.
Debbie, big time.
Right. Sorry.
But I'm just saying that was that committee was very useful in the last. It was really powerful what they did. We need to have a handbook. A current handbook. That's what they put together.
Well, we have a good handbook right now, a good basic handbook, and what we try to do is we come up with some issues that are not appropriate. And then we're trying to get those revised piece by piece. And this is, I think, would be a great task for the office ops to pick up on that. So Jerry, thanks for taking this on.
Jerry, I thought that your list was excellent. I had some more comments, but I'm going to send them to you.
Good,
Okay.
thank you, Laurel.
Thanks, Laurel. The new business we have, this is never going to stop with the opioid crisis. By the way, we have yet to receive a penny. I'll report that. I think this is number 7, Patty, or 6 at least. So these are 2 settlement agreements. That's the same procedure as the previous ones from Walmart, Rite Aid, Walgreens. Some of these I've never even heard of, but they are now part of this lawsuit. So, and we are a party to it for, hopefully we will start receiving some money from the federal government from this. So anyway, we have to go through both of these and approve these just like we did in the past.
I move to approve endorsement of West Virginia Attorney General opioid settlement agreement with Walgreens.
Second on the motion. Second from Christian. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye. I move to approve endorsement of West Virginia Attorney General opioid settlement agreement with Bypass Pharmacy, Rhonda Pharmacy, The Pharmacy, Glendinning Pharmacy, and Fruth Pharmacy, Inc.
Okay, discussion, second on the motion, second from Christian, discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
And Patty, get all that stuff together so I can sign that, and we got to send it off to the Attorney General. Is that what we have to do? Yeah, okay. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Laurel. We have a
Second.
motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second from Storm. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:51 PM.
Glad you guys made it back.
I'll tell you,
Would have been quiet.
I love the idea of the third person being from